I just want to tell you a little bit of the story. The Harrow Youth Collective is the name for Harrow's Youth Minster. A Youth Minster is a youth resource church. It was the bright idea of the Boffins in the Diocesan House, which is the London Anglican Church's HQ, and they had come up with a plan to reach young people across the city. A few years ago, the bishop launched a vision called Capital Vision 2020. Had a number of brilliant aims, one of which was to double the number of young people in churches across London. It was a bold vision. It was ambitious, and it was failing completely. Do you know there are only 2,000 of you under 18, between 11 and 18, across the whole of London north of the Thames? Something needed to be done, something radical, something needed to change, and it needed to change desperately. So they got together, they prayed, they thought, they toured the country, they had a look at different ideas and models that churches were trying, where things failed, where things succeeded, what might work in London. And they came up with the Capital Youth Strategy, a key part of which was this idea of youth resource churches. And they put it to the guys with the money, church commissioners, who are funding mission all around the country at the moment, seeking to kickstart growth in the life of the church. And they won their bid. And we are one of 5 youth minsters in each area of London. So we are in the Willesden area. And the aim of a youth resource church is to support young people, support youth work, and basically to be church for and with and by young people. And if you've got one of these yellow cards, you will have seen the different tracks that we are offering. We've already heard about the Academy, and which is our leadership masterclass for those young leaders among you. We met a couple of weeks ago to look at the Bible. We're meeting tomorrow, aren't we, to dig a little bit deeper into that. We've got the Gathering, which is launching tonight. And then the final track is the Summit, which is an evangelistic event for young people, an easy invite for you to enjoy yourselves, invite your mates along, and we hope that we'll see people coming to meet Jesus for the first time, because that's what we are all about. So we've given up our evening service here at St. Peter's for you, to be the Harrow Youth Collective. This is your space. I really mean that. I don't want to be up here very often. I'm just kicking things off. And I'm looking forward to kind of handing over to some of you guys and giving you a go. Because I want to see this to be a space for you to grow. Because, and here's the thing for tonight, God is calling us to grow his family. You know, we are all about growing God's family. And so we're going to look at 2 things tonight. We're going to look at Isaiah. I don't know if we've got a slide there, Benjay. There we go. And we're going to look at Isaiah 54, 1 to 5. And we're going to think about 2 things. I've got a little bit of work for you to do as we think about extending the family and enlarging your tent. So if you've got a Bible, I'd encourage you to get it out. Wave it at me if you've got one. There are some on the tables. I'd really encourage you to bring your own, because you just get to know your own Bible. It's like your best mate, isn't it, when it's yours? And we're going to read from chapter 54 of Isaiah, which is about 2/3 of the way through, just over halfway through the Bible. It's a pretty big book with a lot of chapters. So Isaiah 54. Here we go. Sing, barren woman, you who never bore a child. Burst into song, shout for joy, you who are never in labor, because more are the children of the desolate woman than of her who has a husband, says the Lord. Enlarge the place of your tent. Stretch your curtain tents wide, do not hold back. Lengthen your cords, strengthen your stakes, for you will spread out to the right and to the left. Your descendants will dispossess nations and settle in their desolate cities. Do not be afraid, you will not be put to shame. Do not fear disgrace, you will not be humiliated. You will forget the shame of your youth and remember no more the reproach of your widowhood. For your Maker is your husband. The Lord Almighty is his name. The Holy One of Israel is your Redeemer. He is called the God of all the earth. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. What on earth is the prophet going on about there? Well, the first thing I want to suggest, he's talking about extending the family. Look at verse 1. More are the children of the desolate woman than of her who has a husband. Here the prophet is painting a picture of Israel under judgment, the people of God. They're childless, they're alone, they're without family, and so they're without hope. But the prophet wants us to know that because of this amazing event that he's just described in chapter 53, the chapter before, everything has changed. Because of the suffering servant, because of Jesus, everything has changed. Jesus is the one the prophet describes as despised and rejected, the one who took up our pain, who bore our suffering, who was pierced for our wrongdoing, who bore the sin of many in his body on the cross. The result is not loneliness and isolation. The result is a growing family of countless descendants, just as God had promised Abraham right at the beginning of the Bible in the book of Genesis. Because God keeps his promises. God remains faithful even when we feel desolate and alone. And so the prophet says, shout and sing for joy, because new life has become a genuine possibility. What he's talking about here is this wonderful idea that we, you and me, we are adopted into the family of God. You know, the Christian faith is more than forgiveness of what we've done wrong, good though that is. It's more than wrongs made right again, great though that is. It is the creation of a new family, that we are adopted as children of God, sons and daughters of the creator of the universe, heirs and co-heirs with Christ. That is who we are. That is our fundamental identity, more than the color of your skin, more than your gender or your sexuality, more than your age, more than your background, more than the money that you earn or your family status in life, more than the size of the house you have or the car that you drive, more than the skills that you possess or the intelligence in your brain, any of those things. They don't matter. The only thing that really matters is who we are, and we are sons and daughters of the living God. And I hope that makes you, just feel loved, accepted, valued by your Creator. And I think it's great news, and it's something to share, to pass on to the next generation. The prophet speaks of this promise of descendants, of a legacy that's left behind. And, adoption's a real thing and a powerful thing. And Jason and Rachel just adopted for a second time. And Jason, come here and join me. I've given him a round of applause. We've already heard from him tonight. But sometimes when we're talking about the way God feels about us, it's hard to understand. It's hard to hear it. And it feels a little bit abstract and a little bit distant. And I thought, actually, well, let's hear from a dad who's adopted 2 children, a son and a daughter. And you just adopted a Thomas.
We certainly have,
How long ago was that?
A month ago.
A month ago.
Yeah.
Okay, and tell me how you feel about this boy that you've adopted.
I feel overwhelmed is one of the best words to describe it. It's a strange thing in that when it all begins, he's a little stranger to us. We're a stranger to him. But we're just there and say, we love this little guy. We love him, but we're going to get to know him. It's a journey. It's a journey for him. We're just so pleased that he's increasingly more settled. He's sleeping, he's eating, doing all those things that are going to keep him alive, which is good. And we're just loving being foursome as a family and getting to know this little boy as well through all the sleepless nights, all the rest of it. But it's good. And as a dad, I just feel, wow, this is amazing. And I love spending time with him. Other times it's like, oh yeah, I've got to go back to how do you entertain a toddler? What do you do?
Yeah.
All that sort of thing as well, entering to toddlerland again, but loving it.
So you've got 2 adopted children, Daisy and Thomas.
Got Daisy, nearly 7.
And just tell me, give us one of your favorite moments as a family together. What's a highlight for you?
Wow. We love doing our pizza and film nights as a family. That's an absolute must. We do that pretty regularly. But one of the lovely moments we've had is, I love being here this morning, and we have like some great family worship songs, and just to see them both getting involved. But little Thomas just standing up for the first time, only about his second time in church, but just going for it, like the little knees bending, and him clapping completely out of time, which is just like his dad as well. So it's just fun to see them getting involved in that. And going out for big family days, we love going out doing our National Trust thing, going to Cliveden House and walking through the woods and just seeing him love that. And there's this big avenue of trees at Cliveden House. It's absolutely gorgeous, particularly in the autumn. And he's just about getting there in terms of walking. But for about 100 meters, he walked along this little path with, his just hand gripping my little finger to balance and walking along. And I was just like, yeah, this is amazing, amazing.
I feel like you could probably go on for quite a long time.
So
I'm going to stop you there. But I think you feel the passion. And just for you, God just reaching out his little finger and you walking along with him and the delight that he takes in walking that path with you. And that's an incredible privilege that we have. And God doesn't want us to keep that to ourselves. He wants us to share that, to extend the family to those around us, to see and discover spiritual brothers and sisters and sons and daughters. Jesus said to Nicodemus in the nighttime once when he came to him, a Jewish teacher who was looking for the meaning of life, and he said to him, Nicodemus, you must be born again. And Nicodemus said, what, are you saying I need to step back into my mother's womb? And he said, no, you idiot. I don't mean that. I'm talking about spiritual birth from above. You need to be born of water and spirit. That's how we grow the family of God. And so we need to make the most of every opportunity to be ready to respond to our friends, our colleagues, our neighbors, our brothers and sisters when they ask us, why do you believe what you believe? Wherever we are. And for us, I think that means starting with all of you. And because we recognize that being a Christian and being a young person is incredibly difficult in the 21st century. I thought it was tough. I don't really understand half of the challenges you guys have to face. So I just want you to take a minute, turn to the person next to you, and just share for a second your top 2 challenges for being a Christian as a young person. Go for it. Don't worry, I'm not going to ask you to share any of that stuff. But I think when you're honest with yourself in moments like that, what you recognize, I think, certainly what I do, is that we can't do it alone, can we? There's no way we're going to be able to thrive in our faith on our own. Actually, what we need is community. What we need is friendship and ultimately fellowship across the generations. We need a home. We need a family, don't we? All of us. One of the ministries that I love at this church is a ministry called Spear. And it's an employment program for young people and young adults who are struggling to get into work. Often they're coming from broken homes. They don't really have great relationships with their parents. They've lost their confidence. They haven't done well at school. They don't know how to articulate themselves. And they're lost. And we see some coaches, dedicated men and women coming alongside them, investing in them, getting them up sometimes in the morning, getting them out of a life of crime, protecting them and giving them courage to say who they are, skills to write CVs, and relationships and friendships that they can form, sometimes for the first time. And it is amazing to see these young people beginning to blossom and flourish. And at the beginning of the course, sometimes you think that there's no hope. At the end, the transformation is extraordinary. And we have the great privilege in the church of being able to take them further on that journey. We run a program called Torch, where those who have graduated from the course are offered an opportunity to continue in those relationships. And it's amazing. They do that. We have 15 to 20 young people every week coming alongside other members of the church, eating together, playing with tarantulas and snakes, learning different skills, thinking things through, the meaning of life and philosophical issues, playing board games. They do that all the time. And what they're experiencing without really knowing it, is church. It's the family of God. And I want the Harrow Youth Collective to be that kind of family for young people across Harrow and into the future. So let's extend the family, but we can only do that together, and we can only do that if we're willing to change and leave behind some of the things that we've done before. So the second thing I just want to say tonight is not only do we need to extend the family, we need to enlarge our tents. Look at verses 2 and 3. Enlarge the place of your tent, stretch your curtains wide, do not hold back, lengthen the cord, strengthen your stakes, for you will spread out to the right and to the left. Your descendants will dispossess nations and settle in their desolate cities. Here the prophet's painting another picture of an expanding tent. I don't know if any of you have been to New Wine or Soul Survivor and you arrived with a particular tent. When I first arrived at New Wine, I had a one-person tent. It was like a tube of toothpaste. So you slid into it. You couldn't stand up in it, but I was very proud of it. I carried it on my back, on the rucksack, and arrived completely self-contained. And I put up my tent and then watched in amazement as families arrived and then began to erect these enormous tents with multiple rooms. And I thought, wow, look at my little one-person tent. It's a bit pathetic. And that's really the picture we are seeing here. As the family extends, then the tent is enlarged as bedrooms are added. The whole structure feels the weight of that. The fabric of the building is stretched and pulled in different directions. But because the building's not the goal, the end, there's a bigger picture, the greatest story about the renewal of all things, then we can see that we can begin to adapt and change. And what the prophet's saying to us as God's children, we need to embrace change for the growth of his kingdom. So we must never get too cozy. We must never get too attached to what's familiar and comfortable around us. Let's not look down at our immediate surroundings, but let's look up and out. A youth minster, this youth resource church, Harrow Youth Collective, it's an expansive vision of what could be across the whole of Harrow. And all of the tents that we dwell in, our churches are just temporary structures that are easily adaptable. And we need to be too. It's never easy, it's always costly, but in the 21st century, it's always inevitable, isn't it? Change is constant.